Stress and longevity is the subject matter here. Now, I'm going to talk about the new book from Dr. Peter Attia called Outlive, The Science and Art of Longevity. It's a big book. It's long. It's great. And he covers a lot of aspects on longevity. He'll do the nutrition stuff and the exercise thing and so forth. But what I wanted to touch on at the end of his book is the last chapter, chapter 17, which is titled Work in Progress, The High Price of Ignoring Emotional Health. Dr. Attia, and I hope to have him on the show in the future, he did an excellent job on this chapter, and he was very forthcoming in his own emotional health journey. He detailed it very well in the book. He talked about the struggles and trials and tribulations and what he did to get his emotional house in order. I'm not going to read that chapter. I do suggest the book from a general longevity standpoint if you want your quality of life to be better. But I'm going to just focus on the emotional piece in just a moment. If you don't want to get a 400-page book, that's complicated, but you want to see what you're in for before you get that book, and I do recommend it. You can go and listen to interviews that Dr. Peter Attia has on other people's podcasts. Rich Roll, Tim Ferriss, Andrew Huberman, Joe Rogan, Tom Bilyeu, Jordan Peterson, Leas Howes, even Megyn Kelly. He's made the rounds on all of these people's podcasts, so you can really see what you're going to be in for. What I'm going to do is take a moment and read the last couple of pages in his book out of the epilogue. It's a great summary of the emotional journey that he took, and I do recommend getting the book and focusing on that chapter, okay? So here it is, Dr. Peter Attia, epilogue. It was only after much reflection on this whole experience that I really began to understand how emotional health relates to longevity and how my journey helped redefine my perspective. I had long believed that it's possible to hack our biology and hack it and to become these perfect little humanoids who can live to be 120 years old. I used to be all about that, constantly tinkering and experimenting with new fasting protocols or sleep gadgets to maximize my own longevity. Everything in my life needed to be optimized, and longevity was basically an engineering problem, or so I thought. It took 5 years, 2 stints in inpatient treatment centers, and the near loss of my marriage and my kids to change my mind. What I eventually realized after this long and very painful journey is that longevity is meaningless if your life sucks, or if your relationships suck. None of it matters if your wife hates you. None of it matters if you're not an ideal father, he used a different word in the book, or if you are consumed by anger or addiction. Your resume doesn't really matter either when it comes for your eulogy. All of these need to be addressed if your life is worth prolonging, because the most important ingredient in the whole longevity equation is the why. Why do we want to live longer? For what? For whom? My tactics might have succeeded in my living longer with optimal glucose regulation and ideal lipoprotein levels, but my strategy was unquestionably accumulating more regrets. My physical and cognitive health were great, but my emotional health was tanking. My biggest regret is that so much of the misery that I've experienced and the pain that I've inflicted on other people could have been avoided if I had reached a better understanding of this sooner in life, preferably much sooner. The saddest part is I wasted so much time being so detached, so miserable, so misguided, so much time pursuing an empty goal. But as my recovery progressed, I was enhancing my life and looking forward to the future. My journey to outlive, the book Outlive, finally had clarity, purpose, and meaning. It brought me back to something my dear friend Rick Elias had said to me. Rick had been one of the 155 passengers on the U.S. Airway flight that emergency landed on the Hudson River in January of 2009. As the plane was coming down, Rick and most of the other passengers were certain that they were going to die. Only the pilot's skill and more than a little luck prevented disaster. If the plane had been going a little bit faster, it would have broken apart on impact. If it was a few miles an hour slower and the nose would have tipped forward, it would have sunk into the river. A handful of tiny factors like that made most of the difference between everyone on the plane living and many or most or all of them dying. That day changed Rick's outlook on longevity in a way that really resonates with me. All that time, I had been obsessed about longevity for the wrong reason. I was not thinking about a long, healthy life ahead. Instead, I was mourning the past. I was trapped by the pain that my past had caused and was continuing to cause. I wanted to live longer, I think, only because deep down I knew I needed more runway to try to make those things right. But I was only looking backward, not forward. Quote, I think people get old when they stop thinking about the future, Rick told me. If you wanted to find someone's true age, listen to them. If they talk about the past and they talk about all the things that has happened that they did, they're gotten old. If they think about their dreams, their aspirations, and what they're still looking forward to, they're young. Here's to staying young even as we grow older. Dr. Peter Attia, the book Outlive. I recommend it. I'm Dr. Scott Fuller.